Hello, Chef James here at the Onwentsia Club, and welcome to Onwentsia Home Cooking Class. In today's cooking class, I'm going to show you and prepare for you cacio e pepe. This is a popular appetizer here at the club. We go through a lot of pasta when we put this on the menu, and I'm just going to show you first off what the ingredients are, and I'm going to show you two ways to make this. The first ingredient we have here is all-purpose flour. That's 7 ounces of all-purpose flour. We have 1 ounce of semolina flour. We have 6 egg yolks and 1 whole egg. Here I have 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil and 1 tablespoon of whole milk. And that's basically all the ingredients for the pasta itself. Later on, when we finish the pasta, I have some homemade butter here, some pecorino romano, some sea salt, and fresh cracked black pepper. That's going to be to finish the pasta. What I'm going to do is the quick method. What I use here is a food processor, and what you want to do is evenly pour the dry ingredients first into the food processor, the flour, and then the semolina flour. Next, I do the olive oil and whole milk. Lastly, I put in the eggs. Again, spread it around so it's easier when we start mixing everything. Put your top on your food processor, and we're going to pulse this until it comes into a ball or a big clump. Just pulse it. This will take a few times. Like I said, this is a quicker method. So it kind of, as you can see, it started to clump together like that. That's when you know it's ready to go. So we take this out of the mixing bowl, put it onto your work table, scrape out any that's left in there with your pastry scraper. You're going to need a little extra flour. You may need a little extra flour when you do this part, but we're going to kind of put this all together. And if it does get a little sticky, just put a little flour on your hands. You don't need a lot of flour. And what I'm doing now is I'm shaping it into a rectangle. And then I'm going to let this rest. First I'm going to wrap it in plastic wrap, and then we're going to let it rest. I have a little piece of plastic wrap here. Just wrap it all the way around. And then again, I press it again, just to shape it into a rectangle. It's a little bit easier to work when it's in a rectangle because you can portion it out nicely just by looking at it. So we're going to let this rest for about 20 to 30 minutes. That way, all the liquids will absorb, all the dry ingredients, the flour and semolina will absorb the eggs and all the other liquid ingredients. The next method I'm going to show you is the old-fashioned way. It's called the well method. What you want to do is take your flour, semolina. Notice I haven't used any salt in this at this point because when we cook this, we're going to cook it in salted water. So what I'm doing here is I'm forming a little well. We put the eggs in there, and then the whole milk and extra virgin olive oil. What we're going to do next is we're going to kind of whip those liquids a little bit so when we start folding it all in together, it'll come together. You won't have pieces of egg in there. So it's like you're scrambling eggs. And what you do at this point, once you started doing this, you kind of take a little bit of that flour from the outside and mix it in. by little and go all the way around until it starts getting a little bit thick here, until you're able to work with it by hand. It's coming together nicely, as you can see, and this is the time where I like to use my hands. So scrape off the dough off the fork, and then I kind of like take the flour and fold it in on top of the eggs, and just kind of like work that in a little bit for a little bit until it's a little bit drier, and then you can work with it with your hands. It's getting there. It looks like, when we first do this, it looks like a lot of eggs and liquid ratio to flour, but once it starts getting mixed, you see it all comes together nicely. Okay, so I think it's at a good point right now. Again, just try to scrape off as much as you can, and then we're going to take this and with your hands. Again, if you need more flour, if it's sticking too much, again, just take a little bit of flour, put it on your hands, and just kind of work the dough. And if it does stick to your table, take your pastry scraper and just kind of scrape it all up and bring it together. So it's still a little sticky right now, but as we work it a little bit more, it's going to all come together. And again, if you need a little more flour, you can put a little more flour on top. We're almost there. It takes a few minutes. I recommend doing it this way first, instead of using the easy method with the food processor. This is how we teach our new cooks how to make pasta here. You need to learn how to do it the old-fashioned way before you can do it the modern way. But it's nice to have that, that hands-on feel. You can feel how the dough is. You can see it right here. It's pretty smooth. It's not sticky anymore. And again, I'm just going to form it like I did when we use the food processor. Forming it into a rectangle. And then once again, we're going to wrap that in plastic and let that rest for 20 to 30 minutes. You can rest it in the refrigerator a little bit longer if you want to, but I recommend making this pasta dough and using it that day. The next step, what we're going to do after we've rested the pasta dough, I'm going to show you how to cut the dough. So the next step in making cacio e pepe, which translates in Italian to cheese and pepper, is to roll out the pasta, then we're going to dry out the pasta sheets, and then we're going to cut the pasta. The first step in that is we'll take our already rested pasta dough, unwrap it, and you can get probably 4 good-sized appetizer portions out of this. I'm going to show you 2 methods of rolling it out. First, I'm going to cut it into 4 equal pieces. And I like to put a little flour on it and flatten each piece out before we start rolling it. Little flour, flatten it out. Little flour, flatten it out. This way you need that little bit of flour so it doesn't stick to your pasta machine, and it makes it a little bit easier to work with. So we have these all flattened out. The first way we're going to do this, if you don't have an electric machine like we have here, since we do a lot of pastas, is a good way of doing large batches of pasta. But another way to do it is, most common is people have this pasta machine, you know, you have the part where you roll it out, and then you have the different blades where you cut it. We have fettuccine and linguine. These just clamp onto your cutting surface, your countertop, and then it has a little crank to get it going. This is another good way to get started when you first make pasta, is using one of these machines. Or again, you can use the old-fashioned way of using a rolling pin. I'm going to show you how to do that now with the rolling pin. So what you want to do is take a little flour on your work surface, lay out your pasta, and then you're just going to want to roll this out. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a perfect square or anything like that, or round. But you're going to just roll it out. And what you're looking for is a thickness of about a dime. The thickness of a dime. It's almost there. A little more flour so it doesn't stick. And if you like your pasta a little bit longer, you can roll it out in one direction, and it'll just it'll get long that way. So here we have it. It's a good thickness. You also can use, if you don't have a rolling pin or a pasta machine, you know, a wine bottle. You know, take off the sticker of the wine bottle. It also makes a good rolling pin. So the next step in doing this, after you roll out your pasta, is you want to dry it out. So what I'm going to do, I have a little bit of semolina flour here. So what you want to do is dry it out, because sometimes when you put it straight into the pasta machine, it can still be sticky and stick to the cutters on the machine. So what I usually do is I'll dry it out maybe 3 to 4 minutes on each side. You know, after 3 to 4 minutes, flip it over so the other side can dry. And then once the pasta is dry, it's time to cut it. I'll show you how to cut this one that I've rolled out, and then after this it will go into the electric one. I'll show you how to use that one. So again, when you cut it, the best way to do that is kind of fold it over, fold it in half. A little semolina flour each time you fold it. More semolina flour. And then what you can do now, if you don't have a pasta cutter, again, this doesn't have to be perfect. You can just cut it along like this. Cut it into strips. These are linguine size strips right here. You can, if you want it thicker, that's fine. And then next we want to take a little bit more of the semolina flour and kind of mix it in there so it doesn't stick, and your pasta is ready to go. And you want to cook this like right away when you do this. So we will set this one aside. It could have been a little bit thinner, but that's okay. You know, you can get a little more accurate when you use the cutter. So the next I'm going to show you how to use this. What we have here is the attachment that's just going to roll out the pasta. So we have our pasta here. I'm going to put this on medium speed. The way to do this is feed it into the machine. And what I do at this point is I put the two ends together, flatten it out a little bit, and we start out at setting number 1. Add a little flour each time just to make sure it goes through and doesn't stick to the pasta machine. So we're at setting number 1, now I go to number 2. Again, a little more flour, just a little bit. And we go to the next setting, number 3. it doesn't seem like it's too sticky. So if it feels dry to you, you don't need to put more flour on it. So finally on the next setting, number 4, that's what I go to on this one. And after this, you can cut it to size like this, and then again, semolina flour on your work table. Then we're going to dry that off. Again, 3 to 4 minutes on each side, flipping it over after each time. So again, I'm going to do it one more time for you. We're going to do another piece of pasta. Back to setting number 1. Feed it through. Blends together, a little flour. Still on setting number 1. Flour, both sides, just a little bit. Now we're going to number 2. Number 3. And finally, number 4. You can adjust the speed on this if it's going too fast for you. You can go on a slower speed, but this is a low to medium speed. Again, we're going to cut this. And then again, let this dry 3 to 4 minutes on each side. And then what we're going to do next, I'm going to show you how to cut the pasta. We're just going to change our attachment here. I have a linguine attachment that goes with this KitchenAid. We also have a fettuccine that we can use. But for this purpose, we're going to do linguine. So after your pasta has rested and dried out, we're going to run it through the pasta machine and cut it. So sometimes you may need to pinch down the end here to get it started through the cutter. If it gets a little too dry, that happens. But if you do it, like I said, 6 to 8 minutes total drying time, it should be okay. So we're going to, again, on low to medium speed, just run it through. When it's coming through, I catch it halfway with my hand. And I have some semolina flour here. I just dredge it in there. This way it keeps it dry and the strands won't stick together. And I just lay that down on the parchment lined sheet pan. I go on to the next one. Again, catch it halfway through. Pick it up like that. Try to catch it halfway. Put it into the semolina flour. Or flour. You can use flour also. I just like the feel and texture of the semolina. It's a little more grainy. And I think it keeps the pasta strands separated a little bit better. As you can see, we have the hand-rolled one, which is a little thicker noodle. And then we have the machine cut. So at this point, you can throw this in the refrigerator if you're doing it for dinner, and it'll be okay. You may need to sprinkle a little bit more semolina flour on top, just to keep it from sticking together. But you should keep this uncovered in your refrigerator. If you cover it, the moisture just gets in and it sticks together. So now that we have all the pasta cut, the next step is to cook it and show you how we do it here at the club. So to cook the pasta, we've already cut the pasta. I have about a gallon of boiling water. What you want to do to that water is add a little bit of salt, I usually do about 1 tablespoon of salt for each gallon of water. That's why we didn't add salt to the pasta, because there's going to be salt in the water, a little bit of salt, and also in the pecorino romano cheese, it's going to be a little salty. Plus, we're going to finish it off with just a pinch of sea salt. So what you want to do, if you have one of these pasta baskets, is put your cut pasta into there. This is going to take probably 1.5 minutes to cook. So we have our water boiling. In goes the pasta. And at the same time, I have a low heat on my pan, and I'm going to take like an ounce of whole butter. This is homemade butter. And just get that melted. It doesn't need to be hot. Shake your pasta a little bit, make sure it's separated. And again, if you can take a look there, it's already floating. So fresh pasta is not going to be al dente, but it's going to be pretty close. So another 30 seconds on that. The butter is almost melted. At this point, I can turn off the water because that's okay. Unless you have more batches going, you can do 2 batches at a time. Try not to do too much because you don't want you want it to be, it's easier to work with smaller batches than bigger batches. So the butter is almost melted, so I'm going to turn that off. Right now what I'm going to do is add a little cracked black pepper to that. You can put as much or as little black pepper as you want. So we've got kind of like a nice butter sauce here. And here's an important thing you want to do. When you take this pasta out, see all that water that comes out of it? You want to take it out directly into this, because that pasta water is going to make a little sauce with that butter and cheese when we add the cheese to it. So take it out, put it right in with a little bit of the water. Take about an ounce, a little less than an ounce of cheese, mix it in there. Flip it around. That pasta's got here. We've got a little sauce going on here, so it's thickened up a little bit. So just kind of toss it really well. And next, we're going to show you how to plate this up. Cacio e pepe. What we do here at the club is put it in a nice little appetizer bowl. You can see how nice and creamy it is. The cheese and butter form the sauce. And there's a little bit of black pepper in there. So what we're going to do is just place this in our bowl, appetizer bowl. You have that sauce left over here, so we're going to just pour that over. It's going to soak into the pasta. And what I like to do is I like to finish it with just a sprinkle of sea salt. Since we only put a little bit of salt in the water to cook the pasta, that sprinkling makes it perfect. Also adding a little bit of the pecorino romano. You can put as little or as much cheese as you like. I like a lot of cheese, so I'm going to put a lot on there. And then to finish it off, we're going to take another couple turns of fresh cracked black pepper. It's important that it's fresh. You want that pepper to pop out when you eat it. So this is the finished product, cacio e pepe. And Ernie suggests a Lucien Pinot Noir. This is a 2018 with this. Especially for the winter months, a nice red will go better with this, but in the summertime, springtime, a nice Chardonnay would go well with this. This is how we present cacio e pepe at the club. I'm Chef James. From our kitchen to yours, happy cooking. Onwentsia at home. Cheers.